I'm Matt Gishard, and this is No Holds Barred. In today's episode, we're going to talk about Miranda warnings, police interrogations. What do you write? Everyone's heard about Miranda warnings and police interrogations. But what exactly are Miranda warnings? What is the Miranda case? Well, interestingly enough, Miranda versus Arizona is a case involving an individual, Mr. Miranda, who was interrogated while he was in police custody. He was not advised of his rights. He was not advised that he didn't have to talk. He was not advised that he had a right to a lawyer. His statements were used at trial, and he was convicted of kidnapping and rape. His case was appealed and went all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. It was the Warren Court at the time. And in a 5-4 ruling, the court held that his rights had been violated. And interestingly enough, there were 4 cases up on the same issue at the same time. Miranda was the lead case, but there was a case out of New York, another case out of Kansas City, and a case out of California. And all of them had something to do with people in custody. In custody means not free to go. So Miranda versus Arizona is the seminal case that we often think about. And nowadays, when you see on police shows or makeup shows, you see somebody, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you can say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to have an attorney present during questioning. And you have a right to have that attorney at no cost to you. Something like that when police arrest people or take them into custody. I have lots of thoughts about that. As a former prosecutor, we often said to the police, do not advise somebody of their Miranda rights, those rights that I just talked about, if you're not going to interrogate them. And I had a friend who called me one time. I had a DUI arrest, and he called me up and said, but I'm going to win. And I said, well, why do you think you're going to win? Well, because they didn't give me my Miranda rights. And I said, well, did they question you? And he said, well, no. Understand, Miranda, or Fifth Amendment rights, means in custodial interrogation. So if the police were to call you up on the telephone and attempt to talk with you, you're not in custody. You're free to go. You're free to hang up the phone if you like. If you are in police custody and you are questioned, there's a requirement that you be given your Miranda rights. And understand, in Miranda versus Arizona, he was not. It was a long interrogation. He ultimately confessed and signed a confession. That was the Miranda case. Ironically, the Supreme Court overturned it. He was retried. Nobody ever knows about that. He was retried without the statements that he made, without the signed confession, and he was found guilty of kidnapping and rape and sent to prison for 20 plus years. People don't know that about the Miranda case. But I want to get back to really what's important. And when people are pulled over by the police, a police officer comes up to the car, they are detained. And let's say an officer pulls somebody over for expired registration or something like that, approaching the vehicle and, hey, mister, where are you going? Where are you coming from? Those essential, just initial little discussions do not require Miranda warnings. You're not free to go. The officer is going to ask for your license, registration, and proof of insurance. So you're not free to go. But just preliminary things. Recall one time getting a speeding ticket, and the highway patrol officer walked up to the side of my car and said, so where's the fire? Because apparently I was going a little faster than he thought I should go. Interestingly enough, no requirement for Miranda for those preliminary kinds of things. But once questioning starts substantively, and typically in a traffic stop like that, there aren't substantive things to discuss. Give your license, registration, proof of insurance, sign the ticket, off you go. and there's no requirement for Miranda. I will say that the reason why I felt it pretty strongly that police officers should not do what you hear on Cops and all those other shows, and that's as soon as they arrest somebody and they're putting them in the car, they give them Miranda rights and stuff them in the car. Absolutely wrong. Now, some police agents may require that, but I'll give you an example one time. We had an individual who was picked up on a DUI, and they gave him his Miranda rights, and he invoked, "I don't want to talk about it," when he was in custody. Later on, detectives found out, who were investigating a murder case, that the suspect, happened to be the same person. And guess what? They had no ability to go and question him because he'd already invoked on that DUI when he was in custody. And was there any reason really to give him that Miranda warnings when they first brought him in? No, there was not. So if there is some reason why an officer is going to interrogate somebody and he is in custody, give him his Miranda rights. If in fact you're not going to question him, there's no need for giving those Miranda rights to individuals. So I want people to kind of understand, and you're hearing from an ex-prosecutor, and we often used to say to people, look, tell us what happened. It can only help you. And actually, under our system of justice, it can't help you. As a matter of fact, it's not in your best interest. My police officer friends their hair are gonna catch on fire, but that is absolutely the truth. The burden is on the prosecution under our system, our criminal system. And a person should appreciate that they should have a lawyer present before any questioning and talk with that lawyer. And I can quite assure you that if a lawyer were present, he or she would say, my client is not going to give a statement, because by giving any kind of a statement, that can only assist in the state making its case against the individual. So the rule of thumb from many criminal offense lawyers and many people who exist in the world of criminal conduct is do not talk. Do not talk. And that means if you are given your Miranda rights, then you invoke. And once you invoke, that ends it. No more questioning. None. So when you hear about somebody saying that I got them right where I want them because they didn't give me my Miranda rights, they've been watching too much television. They don't have to give you Miranda rights unless they are questioning you. Now, understand, oftentimes people think, well, I didn't do anything wrong, so I want to explain to the police everything that happened. So they give them Miranda rights, and the person then talks and says a number of things that potentially can be incriminating. Best rule of thumb is don't talk at all. Now, let me say how it actually works in many cases. It used to be DUI people would get what we call 13353, the vehicle code, and that is you're required to keep your license in the state of California, and you're arrested for a DUI to take a test. Now, either a blood test, at one point a urine test, or the breath test. And some police departments would give Miranda warnings before that, and found that individuals would say, well, no, I invoked my Miranda, and now you're telling me that I have to take this test, and you already told me, no, I'm not going to. So how it actually works is they get taken into custody. They're given 13353. They get to choose urine or breath test, depending on the circumstances. And then after that, they're given their Miranda warnings, and they're questioned, if they agree, at length about what happened. Also, many times when people take a polygraph, we call it a lie detector test, prior to taking it, they're given their Miranda warnings. So, okay, I'm going to give you your Miranda warnings, your right to remain silent. But would you agree to take this polygraph? And many people agree. Okay, they're going to waive their rights. How do you waive your rights? You say, I understand my rights. I understand that I have a right to a lawyer. and to have one appointed for me, but I'm going to talk anyway. And so there has to be a knowing and intelligent waiver. So the police have to ask somebody after they give them, do you understand those rights? Having heard those rights, do you waive those rights? And they have to get an affirmative answer that, in fact, the person understands and, in fact, is waiving those rights. So that's Miranda. And people sometimes say, I'm going to exercise my rights under the Fifth Amendment, which is effectively the amendment that protects people, and you do not have to talk to the police. So all of these 4 cases that went up at that now such a long time ago in front of the Warren Court, all of them involved police interrogations. All of them involved the individuals not being advised of any warnings or any right to lawyers. And the interesting one was California versus Stewart. And in the course of those robberies, the police actually spent some time and talked and advised the person in the Stewart case. He was arrested at his home. They arrested his wife. He was placed in a cell, and over the next 5 days was interrogated on 9 different occasions. So the interrogation session lasted a long time. Finally, he stated that he robbed the person who then had died. He didn't mean to rob them. He was convicted of robbery and first-degree murder and sentenced to death. The California Supreme Court reversed, holding that Stewart should have been advised of his right to remain silent and his right to counsel. In that particular case, the United States Supreme Court upheld the conviction in the Stewart case. But at any rate, it all involves the issue of Miranda warnings, police interrogations, what your rights are. So understand your rights and understand that if you're not free to go, and that's kind of important, you are not free to go, it kind of kicks in and interrogation takes place. Miranda needs to be given to you. You have to make a knowing and intelligent waiver prior to giving any statement. If you like this episode, please hit the like button and the subscribe button. It helps with our YouTube algorithm. And also, if you have any questions or anything, please indicate below. I'm happy to hear any input that I can possibly hear on these matters and try to answer the questions in another episode of No Holds Barred.